What's going on there, folks? Good afternoon. It is the Earthmaster here on this weekend, Saturday, January 21st, 2023. It's about 2:21 p.m. here along the west coast in California. Latest quake shows a 3.3. Looks like off the coast here of Morocco area. It looks like, let's double check this and see exactly where this quake is located from the EMSC model reporting out here in the strait. Looks like about 40 kilometers deep for that 3.3. All right, now let's look at the activity happening around the rest of the world here on the flat scale model Earth map. Still seeing a pretty good cluster of movement across the Philippines and over around the Java Trench. Still lacking activity across the area of the Himalayas down through the Myanmar area. It's still in a seismically dead zone, so to speak. One area that has seen an uptick overnight is the Atlantic Ocean. I did see some activity of 5.7 here near the James Ridge up here in the northern Atlantic Ocean. Did see a little bit of activity prior to this 5.7 as well. Like I said, it's been awfully quiet for the past, I'd say the past few days, maybe the past week or so out here in the Atlantic. Now things kicking back up in a little swarm. Got 3 earthquakes here in the last 24 hours. Looks like a 4.8 and a 5.2 prior to that 5.7 coming in. Also down south here into a couple different fracture zones. Got a 4.9 in the central mid-Atlantic Ridge area. That one coming in late last night, it looks like. Down here into the South Sandwich Trench. Some earthquake activity last night as well, 5.0. So overall seismic activity definitely ramping up around the Atlantic Ocean. And that is confirmed also on the EMSC model with the recent activity up north here. So when we see these divergent boundary systems, the separation of the seafloor, so to speak, let me show you guys where we're at. Out here in the Atlantic Ocean, right, we got the arrows pointing away from each other. General plate movement here is off to the north-northeast. And when you get that divergent boundary separation of the seafloor, so to speak, pressure gradients tend to kick up. Areas, in this case, going to be to the east here, and that's kind of what we're seeing ramping up here on the EMSC model, and also the globe here showing a little bit of activity kicking up in this region. Again, just off the Morocco coast, and this should affect, potentially should affect some further activity around the Mediterranean. All kind of putting a squeeze here eventually around the India area, northern India, and areas down south. This zone here, I'm telling you guys, is very quiet, and that's somewhat abnormal. We did see a little bit of activity into China over the past couple days here, just off the plate boundary, but specifically right around this area here, it's just halted right at the northern end of the Java Trench, where all this activity is kind of kicking up overnight as well. So backbuilding, some earthquake activity continues over south of the Philippines into the Indonesia region, while activity still continuing to work its way eastward with that general northeast plate motion, as noted here on the map right here. Northeast direction should be putting a squeeze, should be seeing some activity here really soon across this region of the plates. The area down south here, Tonga Trench, Kermadec Trench area, awfully quiet today, it looks like. Now let me see what's being reported or not being reported. Looks like a couple 4s overnight. Definitely not quiet. On the USGS map it says it's quiet, but it's not. Quite a few 3s across New Zealand, some 4s into the Kermadec Trench, and looks like into the Tonga Trench as well. 4.8 being reported as well. Fairly new earthquake being reported here from the GeoNet servers. It is a preliminary earthquake report, so has not been reviewed by a seismologist. So that's probably why nothing's showing up here across the USGS map. Now let's check out the GeoNet servers here far as earthquakes go. These are kind of the felt earthquakes. A couple 3s being reported there. Looks like in between South and North Island. In a little swarm, 3.9, 3.2, couple 3s there. Right just outside of the Wellington area, it looks like. Just south of there. the southwest. A little bit of swarming kicking up there. Looks like about 11 kilometers deep for that movement. Nothing deep showing up here on the map currently. Now the all magnitudes map here, this will show some of the activity not being felt and also deleted reports as well. But for the most part, it looks fairly active in New Zealand today. A glance at the volcanic drums shows not a whole lot. There's some of those threes kicking up, I bet, on some of the graphs here. Notice that these stations north, the red dot, they're indicating location, not showing that activity. The activity in question here is going to be these couple small earthquakes down there southwest of the Wellington area. But again, nothing big, just definitely a little bit more active than normal. And nothing showing up, just odd. All right, let me check out the Solomon Islands area here and see what we have. Nothing showing up from the EMSC or the GeoNet servers for this area. A little quiet currently in that region. Again, all of our seismic activity, Java Trench, working its way over to the Molucca Sea area and just south of the Philippines. A whole cluster of earthquakes being listed up here on the map. USGS definitely showing some of it. And I got to zoom in to see see what's really going on here near the Molucca Sea. Quite a few 4s and 5s in the mix here overnight and yesterday. And some this morning it looks like as well, right around noontime. We've seen a 5.1 coming in. And definitely showing some activity along the southern end of the Philippine Trench. Here's a somewhat of a deep earthquake into that trench zone, 4.5 to south of the Philippines area. Mariana Trench over here to the east. A deep earthquake into the subduction zone of 4.8, 152 kilometers deep. Pretty deep earthquake. And also into the Japan Trench, 50 kilometers deep for a 4.3 coming in early this morning. Still got to watch this area, folks. You know, and I keep saying that day in, month out, month after month, I should say, because the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench has an extremely high slip rate. It is a major subduction zone with the northwestward plate movement here, the Pacific Plate. You got the movement coming down from the North American Plate, and then you got the Eurasia Plate from the east-south, or the east, or from the northwest, excuse me. Either way, this is like one of the most active zones underneath the most stress as far as the accumulated slip rate goes. And it doesn't act like it right now. It's very quiet in terms of any large earthquake activity. So I expect something to pop off here rather soon. And it's not going to be a 6. It could be well above a 7 when that does pop off. It's just a matter of time. It's been awfully quiet here at the subduction level itself. And it just doesn't make sense. There's definitely some slip rate that has been building up for quite a while now. And it doesn't take 100 years for it to accumulate. All right, the big island of Hawaii got most of the activity today around the Pahala area. Once again, that very typical. No direct movement at Mauna Loa. Kilauea volcano still continuing to stay in eruptive stage. And I didn't see any updates or whatnot or anything change here on the volcanoes across the volcanic map. A little bit of active volcano statuses up along the Aleutian Trench. And, of course, over here around the Mariana Trench area. But Cascade volcanoes, Northern California, all quiet for now. All right, let's see. Let's check out the rest of the states here. Now, California, we were watching this earthquake swarm here on the San Andreas Fault last night, just right smack dab on the peninsula section here. They did see some rather large earthquake activity. Of course, 1906, they had an earthquake up here. And 1838 was the other one that kicked up down here. So a lot of time has passed in terms of large sufficient ruptures along the San Andreas Fault, which I believe is overdue. That's a lot of years and a lot of slip rate built up here, and that could pose some hazards here for the Bay Area. Now that swarming looks as though it came to a halt about just after 9 last night. Again, we were looking at a pretty good amount of swarming right smack dab on this area. Now, earthquake activity hasn't completely dropped off. We're just seeing it kind of migrate a little bit here to the south along the plate boundary itself, but also right there on the creeping, just off the creeping segment, it looks like a couple earthquakes coming in, including the 2.1 and some other small earthquakes. So just because the migration here has kind of shifted a little bit here to the south doesn't mean that we're still not watching for potential movement up here north. So I am keeping that earthquake watch up currently for the continued activity here just along the plate boundary. Up here in Northern California, off the coast here, we did have a 1.7 coming in, very shallow earthquake just south of the Cascadia megathrust onto the Pacific side of the plate boundary. 1.7 at 4 kilometers deep. Pacific Northwest, nothing showing up because it's a weekend. USGS does not really report anything above or below 2.5. And I'm sure there's some earthquake activity just not being reported. Let's see what else we got here for California. Let's see what's going on down south. A little bit of adjustment right here on the Garlock Fault shear zone. Seen that coming in late last night and right after the update. So some small microquakes. Further down south, no major swarming. In fact, it's awfully quiet down here. Getting a little bit of odd sideways migration here across the area. Now, most of these fault, unless there's a fault that we don't know about here, hidden deep beneath these mountain ranges, probably not. But most of the faults here northwest to southeast, we'll see that line of earthquake activity extend up and down these fault systems. But this one here is just kind of spread across here, a little on the odd side. It may just be the way that they happened. Let's see what we got here. Latest earthquake shows 2.3, about 4 o'clock this morning. 1.0 north here off the San Andreas Fault, the southern end near Desert Hot Springs. But overall, I would definitely say this area quiet compared to normal, typical background activity. Most of the movement seems to be Garlock Fault northward to the San Francisco Bay Area, so we'll continue to watch that. A lot of folks wondering what's going on up here along the Cobb Mountain area. Now, some of these earthquakes, the majority of these earthquakes are due to a process, and we cover this quite a bit here on this channel. It's a process, and you guys might want to look it up. I went down there last year to investigate myself what was going on here. It is a hot spot. It is a volcanic area, Clear Lake Volcanic Field. Now, Mount Konocti, of course, sits up north, but there is heated surfaces below. There's a lot going on below. It's not a dead volcano. There's definitely, some activity going on below it. But what's going on here, and you can see some of this steam out here. These are not, factories, wood factories, or anything else. These are hydrothermal operation plants here. They create energy, electricity, energy, by injecting raw sewage into the surface below. Now, the variable depths here also is dependent upon, I'm sure they got studies as to how far they need to inject it. So that is what we're seeing there with the variable depth of these earthquakes. And yes, some of them are rather shallow, but at the moment, I don't think there's anything to worry about. I know we're kind of poking holes down there and, kind of poking at the bull, so to speak, messing with the horns. But I'm sure these guys know what they're doing, right? Either way, there's a multitude of plants down here. I don't know exactly how many there is, but their whole process is it's gross. When I went down there, I could smell sewer just driving it around the road. So they inject the raw sewage down below to create some type of steam, which creates energy, and that's how they power a good portion of the homes in the Bay Area. So a little gross, but humans and their ideas, pretty crazy. Either way, I'm sure they're going to build some new plants down here and take further advantage of the activity below. But that's what we see. This is very typical. Now, I'd be a little bit concerned if we started to see some 4s and 5s pop off here all over the place. That would pretty much mean this whole area is getting unstable. But these are just general normal earthquakes that are produced from the process that the calpine hydrothermal operations do. And that's sometimes the earthquakes can get in the 3 to 4 range. I don't remember the last time we had a significant earthquake down here. I think you know what? Let's double check that. I'm kind of curious to see what's going on. as far as the largest magnitudes. I think they may have had a 5 at one point into this area. Now we're going to go 4.5 and above. Now this area has seen those. We're just going to go back to the year 1000, traveling back in time. Not really. USGS really didn't keep records back then, but I just want to see for fun what's going on out here. Into the, again, the Cobb Mountain area, which sits within this area. So we're going to go right about here. We're going to make sure we cover this all the way. I'm just going to cover this whole area. Make sure we got everything. There's some fault systems nearby, but we're just kind of concerned about the Clear Lake volcanic field area. And there we go. So since records have been kept here, now looks like a 4.6 back in 2004. I do know that some of these earthquakes damaged some homes out there. It was starting to make the news. And if I remember right, there was a different name for this process. But as far as I know, Calpine Hydrothermal Operations is still doing that, still creating the energy out here. When I was down there, everything's all secured. But maybe I'll get down there one of these days and see exactly how the process is done. I think it'd be rather cool. Just got to find the time to do that. So over the past, since records have been kept here, 4.5 and above, there's been 5 earthquakes above that level. The latest one was a 5.0 back in 2016. So, if I thought something was odd going on around here, we'd be watching GPS measurements. It would show major uplift. And then we could see this whole area get unstable with a bunch of 4s and 5s consistently. Then that we could probably maybe think that there might be some type of volcanic activity, volcanic eruption in the future. But things are relatively stable, but they're taking advantage of that heat below. And again, these earthquakes can get somewhat large. They're not common, but they do get into the 3 and 4 range on occasion. Let's go back to the terrain here. See what else we got across the area. Yellowstone National Park. I'm not showing too much on the graph here. There is the 6.8 from last night. Actually, wait a minute. Where'd it go? Let's see here. Make sure we got the most recent. Yes, we do. That's going to be the Maple Creek area. Holmes Hill, Maple Creek. There we go. That's a little odd. But as far as general seismic activity goes in this area, we're not really seeing too much earthquake activity or any other unusual activity here across the board. Rest of the country, some Oklahoma activity. Just south of the border. Kansas-Oklahoma border, got 2.2 coming in north of Medford. Out in the gas and oil fields, there's Numa oil field down south here, and I'm sure there's a couple of them out here. Let's see what we got for satellite imagery. That looks like a little bitty community, but there is one right here. There's a little, these could be wastewater injection, disposal, fracking operations, oil pumping operations out here. There's a lot of windmills out here as well. You can see them, see their shadow. But this earthquake striking out here where there's definitely some oil pumping operations out there. Same for about the Texas area right now. Caribbean plate, still seeing some activity clustered up here in the Puerto Rico Trench area. Now remember, we just had a 6.2 down here into the subduction level over here. Now this area, there's a couple different trenches. Puerto Rico Trench, one of the deepest trenches out here in this area. You got the Mariotas Trough, whole area squeezed. Now I'm not for sure what the potential for an earthquake is in this specific area. I know there is. But it's been a while since we've seen any large-scale activity. But, man, got quite a swarm kicking off here overnight. And yesterday, it looks like a couple 3s and, quite a few 3s. Upper 3, there's even a 4.0 to the west here. 116 kilometers deep. So something brewing up here around the Puerto Rico Trench currently. Have to keep an eye on that and see how that plays out. That's another area that can see, again, they can see large earthquake activity. Let me see what we got here for, I want to check out. I've done this before, but I kind of want to see 6.0 and above. since and we're going to go back. We're going to do some more time traveling. Wouldn't that be cool? Year 1000. I'm going to draw a rectangle on the map just specifically here for this area of the Puerto Rico Trench. Now, I know further to the southeast, let's see here, we can go right about here, back out just a little bit. Right about there, north. That'll work. Now I did 6.0 and above. The last one specifically in this area looks to be a 6.0 back in 2019. Now where we're seeing the swarming 2001, 2008, 6.2, 1919. So earthquakes can happen in here. Again, I don't know what the largest earthquake is potentially for this region. There's been a couple different studies that it could be a megaquake possibility, but uncertainty onto the as far as like the what's the word I'm looking for? There's not a whole lot to go off of, as far as like the potential goes, but it's there. Definitely say it's there. Let me see what we got for largest magnitudes in this area. 7.7 Puerto Rico area back in 1943. So it's been a little while since we've had a larger earthquake in this region. All I know, definitely seen a pretty good swarm here over the last couple weeks and today and yesterday specifically. All right, further south into the South America region, watching for some further surface earthquake activity. Of course, we had that 6.8 come in here. The 6.8 struck down here underneath Argentina, well deep into the Peru-Chile Trench, a little bit south here. But got to remember, this whole plate boundary is a major subduction zone. And on the plate dynamic map, a lot of pressure comes from what's going on out here along the divergent boundaries with the Nazca plate. It's all being shoved underneath the South American plate. And that's another area that gets quite a bit of large earthquake activity. But, again, nothing lined up like we see over here around the Crow-Kamchatka Trench. That's got major plates all around it that's just kind of squeezing that area. But there is some surface earthquake activity happening here today. Bolivia, Chile area was still rather deep. 121, 245 kilometers deep for a couple fours out there overnight. Another earthquake out here in the South Atlantic Ocean, southern mid-Atlantic Ridge, 4.9 coming in. Whole lot happening out here. So, again, divergent boundaries. We'll keep an eye on areas to the east, obviously, with all this newer activity. Alaska, see what we got up here in the Aleutian Trench. Couple earthquakes, it looks like, overnight and last night. 4.6, the largest. All right, let's see what else we got. Space weather activity here. I'm almost back to normal. I'm still feeling a little bit ill, under the weather type feeling, but I'm getting better. Definitely getting better. A lot of water, a lot of rest. On my way back to being my normal self here. So major sunspot facing us, but gosh darn it, these things just, it's almost like a thunderstorm. Like if you're a weather person here, you would, I just got another notification here about a 4.9 wreck Jane's Ridge again. So not only are we seeing activity at the south again, or down here, but we're seeing renewed activity up here north. Again, just from the EMSC model. Let's see, yep, 4.9. And once again up here in this cluster of earthquakes. All right, space weather. Again, we, us weather lovers, we like to, obviously we want thunderstorms to come over us and bring us some heavy rain and wind. I love that stuff. But watching these sunspots here, it's almost like watching a thunderstorm way off in the distance, and by the time it gets to you, it's gone, it's dead. It's kind of what's been happening here with these sunspots. They get active over here, and then when they turn into Earth view, they calm down like something's watching them. They start behaving. It's almost like that, what's that? The observer effect, right? The observer effect. Some will know, some will not. Either way, that's what's going on here currently. There's not a huge threat for any major flare from any of these sunspots. There's a couple new regions around the bend that are developing. This one looks pretty massive. So we'll watch it in the coming days and see how it progresses. 10% chance for an X flare. I think that's being pretty modest. M flare 55 and C flare at 99% chance over the past couple days here. We've been crackling with C flares, but they've been behaving. They've been observed, so they will behave. Let's see, no major coronal holes facing us. No major solar storms expected here. Things relatively calm across the areas of the higher latitudes. Auroras, not likely. Currently looks fairly low grade right now. All right, guys, have a good one. Stay safe out there and be prepared. A whole lot happening. Definitely a whole lot happening here over the past couple days with some deep earthquake movement. And now we got a swarm out in the Atlantic Ocean with earthquake activity definitely ramping up here along the plate boundary into the straits. So we'll watch further areas east potentially, but don't discredit this area of seismic or lack of seismic activity. It's been very quiet. So this is another zone that gets kind of squeezed, right? Got the Himalayas up here. Earthquake activity north of the Java Trench has been very quiet. So we could see something brewing on the larger side in this area. And most geologists, seismologists agree a seismically dead zone is one of the, well, not dead zone, but quiet zone. Should be one of the ones most watched out here. Of course, swarms as well. Got to watch when swarms kick up. Atlantic Ocean out here. We're not going to see a mega quake out here, but we do get some 6s on occasion. That could be what it's leading up to. 5.7 so far, the largest out there, and to the Wreck James Ridge area. All right, guys, stay safe. Make sure you guys subscribe while you're here, and like the video. It does help out the algorithms quite a bit here on YouTube. So we'll catch you guys a little bit later back here tonight. Stay safe.